Hey guys, it's Danny and I'm back for another video, and today's video is something that I've been kind of wanting to do, so basically what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be telling you about books that I thought were meh. What I mean by meh is like books that I didn't love but I didn't hate. Books that I don't have very strong feelings towards. Books that I just, you know, there were a few parts that were good, but except they're just meh. They're like, okay, I read it. It was pretty okay. You know, whatever. And now, without further ado, let's get into 5 books that I thought were meh. The first book on my list, I'm going to start with this one, is The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. I read this a while ago. I have not read this very recently, but I do remember my feelings about it. I remember that I didn't love it. I remember the first book was the best, and then it went downhill from there. This book is about a girl who is in kind of like a post-apocalyptic world where aliens are still fighting with the human race, who's left of them, because there's been 5 waves of kind of things to wipe out the human race. So it's the girl and her brother who are left, and basically it's her and then trying to survive alone, and she doesn't know where her brother is, and they go through a lot of that. So it was like literally meh is the best way that I can describe this book. There could have been more to it. I feel like it was kind of poorly executed. It was okay. It was an okay book that I feel could have been done better and I wasn't that interested in. But the second book I have is actually a ending novella, like a 3.5 of a very popular YA series that has recently come kind of more into popularity with a 4th book coming out, and that is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. So this is the novella kind of wrap-up ending and the leading into the new book, the 4th book that's going to come out. This novella wrap-up was okay. It just didn't have a plot. Like, there was nowhere it was going. I feel like what it was doing was showing us scenes that kept to like a small plot, but it didn't really have a plot. It was really just like, this is what you need to get you from Court of Thorns and Roses to A Court of Silver Flames that's coming out soon. And it just kind of set up what is perhaps going to happen in that book, because I know that book is about Nesta and Cassian. So this was just like a throwaway kind of like, this is what you need, here, read it. Okay, so this is one of the books that I feel people are going to have the most problems with me putting on this list. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I just recently read this book. I was not blown away by this as I expected to be. It was put on as some crazy fantasy, some epic enemies to lovers, you know, amazing, very hyped story. I didn't get any of that. I mean, we got the fairy world. We got the bare minimum of enemies to lovers. There was like nothing to go off of. I just, like, really, like, for all this book claims to be, I was like, that's it? That's all we get? So I'm going to start with our main character. Her name is Jude. She's mortal. She lives in the world of fairies. She was okay. It was kind of creeping dangerously towards the I'm not like other girls stupidity. But I feel like she's very bitter. She's definitely super bitter. She's a very bitter protagonist. Like, she kind of like feels like the entire world's against her, and they kind of are, but just like a very meh protagonist, nothing that stood out to me, nothing that really related me to her. And then there's Cardan. Cardan is probably one of the biggest book assholes I've ever met. He's literally sucks on too many different levels, and I feel like if you're gonna make an enemies to lovers where a guy is that bad of an asshole, you gotta have some kind of like redeeming qualities. He has none. He's absolutely no redeeming qualities whatsoever, and yet she's like throwing herself at him at the end. Like, why? Just to mess with him? But why? He doesn't even like her, but yet he does? Some way, even though acting like he hated her and like almost killing her multiple times, and his friends hurting her. Like, what is this? And another problem I had with this was that, like, for the first part of the book, there was, like, no action. Like, nothing was happening. Like, she was just kind of going through the motions. Like, nothing really differed in her day-to-day life. Like, I couldn't see a clear catalyst. The only clear thing I could see was, like, a midpoint of the book where things happen, people's true selves are revealed, and then the action actually picks up finally. But there's no action for the first maybe 200 pages, and then after that, in the last 120, like, everything happens. And I hate books like that. It's like, you know, you can do that kind of action in the end. Why not kind of sparse that up throughout the entire book? The next book I have is one that I also read kind of recently. That is My Plain Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. This book is in a trilogy of 3 retellings that all deal with women named Jane. It's My Lady Jane, My Plain Jane, and then My Calamity Jane. But the thing about this trilogy is that you don't have to read the first one to be able to read the second one, because they're 3 different retellings. So, like, why make it a trilogy, first of all? I was like, okay, why? Second of all, this is a Jane Eyre retelling. And if you don't know, Jane Eyre is one of my favorite classic books. I am in love with the story of Jane Eyre. That is one of my ride or die books. And I was interested to pick this up because I was like, what are they going to do with it? How are they going to approach it? And I don't like the way they approached it at all. I feel like they only saw the story from a surface level, and they didn't really understand the point behind it. They didn't really understand, like, Jane's growth. They didn't understand that everything else that happened in the book that may be a little bit more problematic contributes to Jane's growth of being an independent person, of her growing out of her shell and being who she is. This didn't realize it at all. I feel like Jane had very little real growth in this, and also they added so many new aspects. Apparently it's supposed to be more realistic of what Jane Eyre was based on, and then they had the author of the book in the novel. One of the characters is Charlotte Bronte herself. Apparently this is supposed to be the backstory to why Jane Eyre was written, which I don't like. I don't like that they, like, made a fake story and that it just takes so much out of the book. Like, it's basically saying, this is the real backstory to what happened in Jane Eyre. Like, this is why the book Jane Eyre was written. This is what it's based off of. This, like, kind of ghostly world, and then there's actually a Jane Eyre who doesn't end up with Rochester, and, like the whole mad wife in the house didn't happen. And then it was just, I was like, really, guys? If you're gonna write a retelling, please understand the story. Don't try and rewrite it. Ugh. And the last book we have, I have saved this one for last because this is probably the one that most people are going to come at me for. Because this is a very, very popular book. Especially on BookTube, I've heard. So guys, my last book that falls on the meh list is none other than The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Where to begin with this? I do not hate this book. That's what I want to start. This book, I don't hate it. There were many aspects I enjoyed. There's one particular passage that almost brought me to tears because it was talking about writers and had a very good quote about writers and really what their job is, about bringing stories to the world. And I've been meaning to, like, put that on and paint that or do something with it because it's just so beautiful. Writing, absolutely exquisite. Like, this is an exemplary example of writing itself. And I could only hope to get maybe one day be such a good writer as Erin Morgenstern. But let's talk about everything else. So basically the premise is 2 magicians are, like, as kids, they've been trained their whole lives in this big competition, but they don't know who their competitor is. And the venue is this beautiful magical circus that only comes out at night. And that has a very, just that writing the circus itself is so amazing. You can feel like you're in the circus, and it's so whimsical and magical, and so much thought probably went into this. I can only imagine how much she thought about this and how much she planned this out. But I feel like it's misleading. Like, when you look on the back, it says a fierce competition is underway. It's not a fierce competition. There is no really competing. basically, and this is a spoiler, I haven't been doing verbal spoiler warnings, but this is a big spoiler. Actually, it's just like the circus is like feeding off of them. Like the circus is feeding off of their magic. And that is the competition. Who has the stronger magic to last the longest? So basically, it's whoever dies first. And it's not like, you know, like a 1-year death, like it's killing them quickly. No. They're like in their 30s when this book ends. It's like, who's gonna die first? Whose magic's gonna give out first? And I didn't like that. And I didn't like that we found that out so late. Like, they led us on for years, and then finally they just say they're dying because this magic is, like, feeding off them and it's killing them. But so slowly. I can't speak. So slowly. Like, there's no anticipation. There's no tension. They're just kind of standing there waiting for death. So, when they find this out, that's when they transfer it to a human boy who gets involved with 2 young children who are like children of performers in the circus. They kind of grow up together, and then he gets the magic transferred from the 2 original competitors. The magic's now transferred to him, which I don't feel like was a good ending. I feel like you just you didn't solve the problem. You threw your burden on somebody else. You cast your burden on someone else who you know is going to have the same issue that you had. You know they're going to, like, feel the pain, and him who's not even really that magical, he's kind of being trained to be magic, who doesn't have the same, like, stamina that you have. You just threw your burden on them so you 2 could not die and be together. Oh, and by the way, it's a girl and a boy and they fall in love, of course. And that doesn't really cause any problems, except just their own inner turmoil that one of them is going to die, and then they cast their burden on somebody else, which I thought was stupid. It was meh for me, because there were definitely moments where I was caught in this circus, I could see the circus, I was fully enraptured by the book, but that was mainly due to the writing. I feel like if this had written by anyone else, I don't feel like I would like it at all, because the writing is pretty much what saves the whole book. The writing is what redeems the book from my I don't even like it at all list to it's meh. It's problematic for me, but it's meh for me. So I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. If we get this video to 20 likes, I will do some more, lists of books. Put any suggestions for videos in the comments. If these were any of your favorite books, I don't mean to be offensive. This was just my own opinion on them. If you have any opinions you'd like to share with me, don't hesitate to put it in the comments. I love you all so much. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.